And greetings, people of the World Wide Web. My name is Vulperine, and today we're going to be making some Turkish coffee. That's right. If you like what you see and you like these coffee instruction videos, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Here we go. So before we get into actually making the coffee, let's discuss the pots we're going to use. This is a Turkish coffee pot. It is just a simple copper pot with tin on the inside, and it has a small notch here that you can pour the coffee out when it is finished. This is a smaller version of the same thing. However, this is one that I found for $1 at a local thrift store, and this one was a little more expensive online. Since Turkish coffee is much stronger than most coffee, it is traditionally served in small cups called demi-tasse cups. They usually hold about 3 ounces of liquid, so they're perfect for this strong coffee. The beans that I'm using today are an Ethiopian single origin coffee. They are a light roast, which works very well with Turkish coffee. You may have also seen this online as well. It is a Turkish coffee that is pre-ground. It is also a light roast. The grinder I'm using today is an aromery grinder. It has an adjustable burr inside of it that you can use to manually grind all of your beans. It is a good idea to know how to use your grinder, and especially at what setting the Turkish coffee can be ground at. In this case, it's the finest setting, and it has Turkish coffee or Ibrik on there, so it's very easy to know how to grind it. One thing to note about Turkish coffee is that it doesn't matter the weight of the coffee that you're putting in there. The proportion has to be correct. So in this case, you want to put about 1 tablespoon of coffee beans for every small cup that you intend to make. So in this case, I'm making 2 small cups, so I'm only going to put 2 tablespoons of the coffee into the grinder to be ground. The grinder that I'm using has an adjustable burr at the bottom. In this case, I'm going to be twisting it all the way to the fine position. This is where the best Turkish coffee is ground, at the finest position. And another cool thing is that the grinder actually catches the grounds, so it's easy cleanup as well. Now it's time to grind. I'm going to grind until all the beans in there are a fine powder. The beans are done being ground when you can no longer hear the sound of the beans crunching. You can just see all that coffee goodness down there. Your next step is to fill both cups of water and pour them into the coffee pot. I find that when I only use the water that is required in the brewing process, that it turns out to be very strong and I don't actually get 2 full cups of the coffee. So I like to put another half demi-tasse of water in there as well, just to dilute the end product somewhat. You'll see by the end of this video that it doesn't actually end up diluting the final product, it just allows there to be more coffee to be made, because the coffee is quite strong to begin with. So now, right before you put the coffee in, this is your opportunity to put things like sugar or other sweeteners or even milk that you want to put into the coffee in now before we actually end up brewing the coffee, because otherwise, if you put it in after, it just doesn't taste the same. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this in here, and we're going to start brewing and heating it up. That's all of it. So our next step is to start boiling the water. This is going to make sure that the coffee spreads evenly into the water and creates the delicious, unique taste that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on, but I'm going to turn it on to a lower setting because we don't want to brew it high and fast. We want to start low and slow, because if you go too fast, it burns the coffee. This is for the entirety of the process. It's a very long and slow process, but the end result is worth it. You may have noticed I didn't actually put any sweetener into it, because I'm crazy and I love very strong coffee. Also, I'm stirring it slightly at the very beginning. This is to make sure that it actually spreads in there. So this is where stuff starts to get good. It's about 20 minutes later-ish? Nah, it's about 15 minutes later. And this is where stuff starts to get good. On the corner there, or not really corner because it's round, but still in the edge there, you start to see a little foam coming up. This is a great sign. This coffee is starting to look really, really good. I'm going to try to get in there a little bit. So yeah, down there on that side, there's a little foam coming up. And what you want for this to happen is you want for the foam to boil over. And then you're going to pour it into your cups, because then it'll be done. But first we'll have to do a couple other things. But yeah, it's starting to get a little bit of a white sheen on there, which is exactly what you want. It's starting to look really good. This is going to be a good coffee. Forgive me for the overexposure, but I'd like to be able to see the coffee on the inside at this point. What we have here is a very light sheen on top of the coffee. You can see the lights reflected in the foam that has started to grow on top. And on this side, the foam is starting to grow very big. This is very good news. It means that the coffee is going to be boiling over soon. And before that, we have to do a few more steps, but we're not quite there yet. We still have about a couple more minutes until it's perfect. But at this point, you want to watch for this. You want to watch for this step where you start to see the sheen on the top of the coffee. What you're seeing now is the foam on top continuing to grow. It's taken on a slightly darker color. And watch out, the coffee pot has grown hot by this point, so it's not a good idea to touch it like I just did. But the foam is starting to grow a little bit. This is where you now have to constantly be watching it to make sure it doesn't completely boil. This is good. It is starting to rise. The coffee is starting to rise. So what you're watching on the inside is the coffee starting to take on a light boil. This is interesting. Ooh, this is where stuff starts to get good. You have to watch the coffee at this point now. You do not want it to completely boil. I'm going to go ahead and take you through this whole part here. You're going to watch it, and you're going to actually raise the coffee pot off of the burner before it starts to fully and completely boil. So it's starting to grow, it's starting to grow. Now. Did you see that? You started to see the coffee coming up from underneath? There it is again. You take it off of the burner, and then you put it back on, and you're going to do this 3 times until that foam on top is gone. You do not want it to fully and completely boil. There we go. And at this point, when you have this much foam left, you have about this much foam left just on the corner and on the outsides of the cup, your coffee is pretty much done. That's kind of a rather difficult thing to try to explain, but I mean, there it is. You just have the corner, the very edge of the coffee is done. You go ahead and turn that off. So this is pouring the Turkish coffee. Now what you want to do is you want to pour very slowly to make sure that you don't get any of the grinds. As you can see, the coffee is coming out without any grinds in it. It's looking very, very good. As you can see, it's more of a lighter roast. So now we're going to pour this one, and you're going to want to pay attention, because there down at the bottom, if you watch closely, the coffee is starting to get a little bit darker. When you start to see grounds, when you start to see this heavy trickle of grounds in there, that's when you want to stop. Because that's all the rest of that is not coffee, it's coffee grounds, and it's disgusting. You do not want to drink that. That will ruin you. That looks super good. And that's it for this coffee video. If you like what you see, please feel free to like and subscribe and comment down there seeing what else you want to see as far as coffee or other beverage instructional videos you want to see, and I will be sure to see what I can do about making those. Until next time, see you later. Maybe sometime I'll figure out an actual outro for this stuff.